welcome to the last but not least day of our Mobile People Community Day. Thank you for coming here and being here. Thank you for making your time to watch us. And today we're going to speak about cross platforms. And as all cross platforms do, they take all the best from each platform. And it's like the last day. We're going to talk about the best topics that we did from all 3 days. So to start this conference, I want to introduce you, the person who made this event possible. Chief Software Engineer, Head of Flutter Discipline, Flutter and Dart Google Developer Expert, and our community driver and just a nice guy and great person, Alex Denisov.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, a lot of like words, titles. Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for making your time.
Yeah.
Before we start,
I have second slide from my presentation about me. I suppose I need to remove it if you like introduce
me. All right. Before we actually started, I wanted to ask you a question for a long time, actually. And I think everybody's interested in it, if you don't mind. So what made you to become a Flutter preacher?
Wow. Yeah, preacher. Yeah. Really sure that I'm looking like to preacher, but yeah, probably I can answer to a question. I disagree with this term, but I know what do you mean. Probably 7 or 8, no, 2018. That was 5 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago. At the time I used to be GDG community organizer, if you know what I'm talking about GDG, and organized my first conference. And of course, as a organizers, usually I wanted to create my own mobile application for a conference, but I knew only Android development, and it was a challenge to find someone from Apple ecosystem who will be able to help me with the application, describe him, because conference was related to Google technologies. Yeah, it was complicated. And then on Google I/O I met Flutter, and yeah, there is solution of everything for me, and it was really a solution that time. So I wouldn't say that I'm like preacher, because I don't like propose Flutter to everyone, to everything, for everywhere to solve any task, because sometimes there are tasks that will be more easy solve with like native solutions or probably React Native, because it depends on a lot of factors. Yeah. No, but sometimes Flutter can solve everything. But I propose it only if I'm sure that Flutter is the best for this specific case.
All right. Thank you for your answer. Very interesting. And before I will let you to go with your presentation, I just want to remind our audience to ask questions on YouTube, on VR community. We're always open for any questions. So let's rock.
Thank you very much for introduction. Yeah, let's get started. Today I'm going to tell you a story about embedding Flutter into native mobile and web applications. Unfortunately, I can't see you because we are online. It will be much more nice to see you in audience, but yeah, it's impossible. But I know that you are. Yeah. So thank you for attending. Let's move on. So my first slide I can skip. as I mentioned before. Yeah, because Dima already told everything that I have here. But yeah, if you want and still don't follow me on Twitter, I prepared QR code for you. Yeah. Please don't hesitate to follow. Yeah. Okay. The first question, what does embedding Flutter mean? I'm not sure that everybody already heard this term before. Yeah, in real audience, I would ask, please raise your hand if you heard this term before or not. But here, let's skip this step. And I will try to ask this question to myself and answer it. Yeah, Flutter. I suppose everybody knows that Flutter, is cross-platform solution made by Google and used Dart language to prepare one code base that can be launched on iOS and Android and some other platforms. Yeah, and since Flutter version 3.3 that was released, let's just remember, in 2021. Yes, probably it's the 2021. Yeah, and since this time, using Flutter, we can implement mobile, web, and desktop applications, 6 platforms at once. And there is a question. Try to imagine 6 different platforms. All of them have different operation systems, different supported languages, different internal APIs. For example, if you want to work with camera, you need to just call Kotlin or Java API. Using Kotlin or Java, call Android native API. Using Objective-C or Swift, call iOS native API, and like TypeScript and JavaScript on web, C, C++ on Linux, like a lot of different languages and APIs. But we have a Dart, not any of them. So usually Flutter developers don't care about this because we have pub.dev, and you can just import a plugin from there that already has implementation for native API, and you just call Dart method and get access to camera, I don't know, local storage, file system, whatever, and don't care. But still, there are a few cases when you have to implement platform integrations yourself. For example, you have already implemented platform functionality for something, or just third-party platform-specific libraries or platform-agnostic libraries like TensorFlow, or specific hardware. Yeah, it's possible. Or even low latency NDK features that you need to access using C API. Yeah, and just try to mention that there are no plugins at PubSpec here. You need to implement it yourself. How it works? We need to implement Dart API on Dart side, and the implementation will be one for all platforms, for Android, iOS, etc. Yeah, and specific implementation for any platform. For example, Java or Kotlin implementation Android, and we just call Flutter method, and if we launch our application Android, Android specific functionality will be executed. The same for iOS, but Swift or Objective-C. The same for browser, but JavaScript or TypeScript. And desktop, C, C++, whatever. Yeah, but Today, we skip this kind of integration. Yeah. To be honest, I already talk about this kind of integration. It's like many phases of Flutter integrations, but we have no recording on a YouTube channel. I suppose I will update this presentation and we will upload it because Flutter got new features for calling native methods, and it's necessary to add it to presentation. But let's talk about next time, because today we are talking about one other case. What if native application already implemented? Yeah, you have already implemented native application. Can we just take Flutter and put it inside already implemented native application? Yes, we can. And there is an answer to the first question in my presentation, because it's named Embedding Flutter. We can implement something in Flutter and just embed it into Android native application, iOS native application, web, whatever. So, okay, we have such opportunity, but the logical question here, why? Why do we need it? Yeah, why we can implement if we have already implemented native application? Yeah, we can just implement this feature natively, or if we really want to have Flutter there, let's rewrite application to Flutter and add features Flutter. Yeah. Yeah, it's could be an answer for some situations, but sometimes we really need it. Let's try to imagine when it might be needed. For example, yeah, we have situation that I already mentioned before. We need to add the exactly same feature for iOS, Android, and web. If we implement it natively, we will need to implement it 3 times. But we don't want to implement it 3 times. Yeah, and we want to implement it only once and put it. And we don't want to rewrite already implemented functionality to Flutter because, I don't know, because we have no time, no resources, and at least we just don't want. Yeah, the case. And the second case, we have already implemented native application and already implemented Flutter application, but we want to merge them to have both functionality in one application. Case. And let's try to add some details to this scenario. For example, we don't want to have like one screen of native, one screen of Flutter. We want to have a mix when we have on the same screen a few widgets natively implemented and few not widgets, like UI components natively implemented and some Flutter widgets mixed on the one screen. Yeah, that's increased complexity. And for example, one more scenario, we want to merge our application partially into native and keep standalone Flutter application. It's also a possible scenario. But question is, it's technically possible to implement such kind of mix? Or yeah, of course, it's possible. But I can't share with you real tasks that I had because NDA, blah, blah, blah. It's impossible to share. But I want to demonstrate to you how it works. So for demonstration, it's the easiest way. It's have like a real task and just show this real task. But we have no real task. Let's create it. First that we need already implemented Flutter application. Okay, second that we need already implemented native application. Not one, more than one, because iOS, Android, web. Yeah. I mentioned iOS application, Android application, or web application, The answer to the first question, I decided to take one of my applications that I implemented for different demonstration for Flutter on TV. I just there's a link to GitHub, but I a little bit changed the application because for our real task we don't need TV functionality, and I removed all TV functionality and kept only iOS, Android, and web there. And so next step, we need native application. I have nothing. I had nothing native application that I will be able to use in real task. Okay, let's create just simple native applications and try to integrate already existing Flutter application to them. And here I decided to increase complexity a little bit because all documentation that I found about such kind of integration related to standard native applications. I mean, standard approach for Android with XML layouting and so on. Yeah, and I decided to try to integrate Flutter models into application implemented with Swift UI for iOS and Jetpack Compose for Android. Okay, let's prepare a simple application for our real task. First, Android. Jetpack Compose, you can see to the small piece of code that implemented this screen. It's really similar to Flutter. There are composable functions instead of widgets, but you see even the names of composable functions the same as the widgets in Flutter. You see scaffold, column, text, floating action button. Yeah, it's Kotlin functions, but it works the same way as the Flutter widgets. Okay, I just added scaffold, column with image, text, and one floating button, floating action button that do nothing, just to have it. And next, Swift UI. Also not, I would say, not very complicated application. And you see, the structure of Swift application also is similar to Flutter application, but names a little bit different. For example, vstack instead of column, zstack instead of stack, floating button instead of floating action button, but the meaning is the same. And we have the same applications with UI as previously on Jetpack Compose, but for Apple. Native Apple in the center, native text, native button. Yeah, we prepared. Oh yeah, web. Let's implement Angular application. I decided not to share details of Angular application because it's not such interesting as Swift UI at Kotlin, and we are mobile people and not like Angular people. Yeah, and I did it very fast. And you see, for example, I forgot to remove Jetpack Compose here to Angular. The replace, I mean. But still, yeah, the Angular application also prepared and without button. So looks like we well prepared. Now we have native application, Flutter application. So let's move on. First, prepare Flutter project. If you start Flutter projects from scratch, it's very easy to prepare such task. You need to change project type from application to model, and Studio will prepare it for you. If you have already implemented the application as me, you need just to add a little bit text to the end of pubspec YAML. Just highlight this model and blah blah blah, Android X package and so on. Yeah, just add it and do pub get. Yeah, let's start. Oh yeah, I have small interactive part of my talk. Let's decide from which application we will start to integrate Flutter, iOS or Android. If you want to start with Android, please write in comments Android. If you want to start with iOS, please write iOS. I know that there is like latency, but let's try to play a little bit. I don't know, latency probably 10 seconds. Wait a little bit. Yeah, I see answer. iOS. Okay, iOS. Yeah. You are so trusting. It's just PowerPoint presentation. How can I change the flow that I already prepared? Yeah, let's start with Android. Sorry for this joke. Yeah, first that you need, it's set up your Android project for integration with Flutter. Yeah, there are nice amount of proper written documentation. There's a link down of the slide, on the bottom of the slide. Yeah, and from documentation we have two options: how to integrate our Flutter model into Android application as an archive or source code. The first option is more appropriate for native developers because if you don't want to see Flutter code, you just attach archive and work with it. In second case, you can work both source code, Android and Flutter in the same studio. So let's take second one because we are Flutter developers, probably, or pretend to be them. Yeah. So what should we do? We need to add a little bit in the settings Gradle and a little bit to Gradle. Yeah, and please press sync now. Okay, looks very easy. Yeah, simple. Looks like not such easy as expected. A lot of different exceptions, errors, and so on. Why? Yeah, because version numbers for Android project that you created and Flutter project are different, and they can't build together. For example, if you create a new Android application with support of Jetpack Compose, it uses last version of Gradle wrapper, last version of Gradle plugin, and so on. Flutter don't work with latest versions. And I spent some time to find the best combination. And for you, it's much easier. You can just take the versions from my example, and it will work with this version, Gradle 7.5, 7.2 of inbuilt Gradle for tools build Gradle, and Kotlin plugin 1.7.2.0, and Java should be more than 11 in my example. After changing these settings in both, not in both, in your Android project, so take it from there, it works. Panel in the wow, yeah, let's go. So we integrated Flutter model. Then we need to add our Flutter functionality to Android screens. We have three options: add Flutter screen to Android app, add Flutter fragment to Android app, and Flutter view to Android app. The first is the most easy way, most easy scenario, and usually when people think about integration Flutter into native, they thinking about this case because just Android activity, Flutter activity, and they live together. The second case, a little bit more complicated, Flutter fragment to Android app. You just can, add Flutter fragment to as a not to full screen and so on. But for me, it was most interesting case, Flutter view, because Flutter view I can put into composable function. But there are still some problems that we need to solve. The first, we have only one Flutter model for Flutter application, but we have two, in this example, two pieces of Flutter in Android application. But we don't want to see the same in two places on the screen. But we don't have two applications. How to manage it? Let's solve it. The second problem, for each piece of Flutter, we need an instance of Flutter engine. But Flutter engine, it's not something light. It's I would say heavy thing. And if we add more and more Flutter engine, it's not very good from memory consumption point of view. And the third, every Flutter view is like separate Flutter application and has separate Flutter state. How to communicate between them? How to have common state. Okay, let's solve them one by one. There is an opportunity to create one or more entry point for such cases. We have main method, that entry point for standalone application, but we can create more entry points. For example, here I created two additional entry points, show movie screen and show movie card, to show different pieces of application as a start point. The second problem, Flutter engine. There is a class, Flutter engine group. This is Kotlin implementation, but Kotlin really looks sometimes similar to Dart and to as all modern program languages, you can work with it. And Flutter engine group is a class that give you how to say, caches all Flutter engine functionality that can be reused between Flutter pieces in application. So you need to create only one Flutter engine group, and then it's not really depends on how many Flutter engine you will have. 1, 2, 3. The difference between memory consumptions will be very, very small. It's really nice thing that give us opportunity to use many Flutter pieces, because if we if we don't have such thing, it will be impossible. We have no such amount of memory. And state, because we have completely separated Flutter like sandboxes in Flutter use, we can communicate with native side. In our case, it's Android. So we need to manage state on Android side and then provide the state to Flutter using platform channels. We can organize streams using event channels or just call methods using method channels. It's not really important, but the main thing, that state we should have on native side. The latest step is very easy. We need just create Flutter composable function, put inside Android view, and have Flutter view inside Android view. Let's take a look how our code changed. Just added to column one Flutter composable and provide there one instance of Flutter engine. There the image, and under the text, we added one more Flutter composable with second instance of Flutter engine, and both of them, and every instance has a separate entry point and show different Flutter UI. Ta-da! It works. So we have two Flutter pieces. On first one, we can put tab to the movie. And in this case, I a little bit changed functionality that if we have different entry point, we don't open the screen with details of movie. Instead of that, we send information about number of movie using platform channel to native site. And second instance of Flutter, listen native part, and if native part got new number of movie, just open it. And two separate Flutter pieces work together using Android as a mediator. So yeah, we're done. We have mix of Flutter and Jetpack Compose, and it works. And yes, again, sorry for those of us who choose the Apple first. Yeah, it's just PowerPoint. So let's set up iOS project. There are three options how to embed Flutter in the iOS application. We also let's choose also the one that gives us opportunity to work together with Flutter code and iOS code. And integration with iOS much easier than to Android. That's why it was a reason why I decided to show it as the second. You need just add few rows to your pod file and run pod install. Everything works. Then the next step, how we can add Flutter to Flutter screen. But if you open documentation, you'll see only one. Really? We can only one opportunity add a Flutter screen, and how we can work with Flutter views. But I think it's just mistake in documentation. If you open the link, you can see that there are opportunities start a Flutter engine and Flutter view controller. But we can have more than one Flutter view controller on iOS. So the approach absolutely the same. We have a class Flutter engine group there. We can create instance of engine with entry point that we want and create as many as we want. And create Flutter view. For Flutter view, it's a Swift UI component, Swift UI view, and how it's properly named. Yeah, that has Flutter view controller inside, and yeah, just show us a Flutter piece on the screen. So let's add it to our code. Flutter view with one instance of Flutter engine, then image, then text, and then Flutter view with second instance of Flutter engine. That you see absolutely the similar as in Android Jetpack Compose. Bam. Yeah, it works. So the same animation. We were success when we create mixed application with more than one Flutter and native iOS. Okay, we have the third one, web. Do you remember Flutter Forward conference that was in the beginning in January? As I remember this year, there Tim Sniff demonstrated new Flutter feature with name element embedding because it was impossible before, but now it's possible. We can embed Flutter in the native web application. And there was a nice demo. You can follow the link at the slide and watch this demo that we have on this slide. But in the demo, they used just very simple web application created without any framework. And I tried to embed it in Angular, and I was success. I decided again not to share details with you because we restricted by time. And you see, I wasn't completely successful. I was able only add one of Flutter instance. I didn't find solution now how to add two, but I'm going to find solution, but not right now. So in my example on GitHub, you can find it as well. And if you want to help me with it and contribute, and you just know have a lot of experience in Angular, again, don't hesitate, just write me a message and we will try to find solution together. But we are mobile developers, and I concentrated on mobile first. And the desktop, I even didn't try, but I'm sure that it's possible. It's necessary to find time and try. And the last but not the least part of this research, profiling. I just tried to check how it's affect memory and CPU and prepared release build. No, profile build, of course, sorry. And just compare Android application without Flutter and Android application with Flutter. Don't ask me why I decided to do it with Android. I work with Android Studio, and it was much easier. Probably later I will do the same part of research for iOS, but I'm pretty sure that results will be almost the same. And you see difference. From CPU point of view, we have like in the beginning, in the starting application, we have a little bit more workload for CPU, but then here I just tried to move and open other pages, and here I wasn't able to do it because I just tapped to the screen but had no reaction because without Flutter there are almost no functionality. And with Flutter part, you see, we already discussed, and about memory consumption, you see without Flutter, it's this amount of memory, and with Flutter twice more. Yeah, that's we have. Yeah, of course, we need to spend memory resources for work with Flutter as well. But I'm not sure that if we have like only Flutter applications, we won't. Oh, yeah, it's a nice idea to compare clear Flutter application without such approach. I will add next time to the slide. And the next comparison, when we have two Flutter pieces, you see, the consumption of memory almost didn't change. A little bit more CPU workload, but in general, we can say that it's not such big difference. Yeah, so looks like we solved the real task that created specifically for this talk. Yeah, except Angular solved partially, but yeah, partially it's also not bad. Conclusions. What kind of conclusions do we have? So of course it's not like regular case, but as I mentioned before, sometimes we have scenarios that we need to know how it works and which pros and cons we have, which which specific details regarding memory consumption and so on. Because like just try to example, customer come to you and request you to implement something like this, and you have some options to propose to him with pros and cons. As I mentioned, rewrite everything to Flutter, implement everything natively, or create mix. And you need to know about such opportunity, because from resources point of view, it's the easiest way. But with some nuances. It depends on what you really need. Sometimes it's a really nice proposal for such cases. It's case by case, can be important or not, but I suppose everybody should know about such opportunities of Flutter. And yeah, my favorite meme about Flutter developer. As you can see in the slide, sometimes Flutter developer need to know not only Dart, and you pretend to be like senior plus Flutter developer. It will be nice to learn a little bit native functionality, how to natively works Android, how it natively works iOS, how natively works web, and how natively works desktop in C++. But yeah, nowadays we have a nice help here who can help us. For example, yeah, if you don't know how to do it in Swift or in Kotlin and you remember on the Dart, you can just ask ChatGPT. There are also some nuances with his advices, but if you watched the first day of the conference when we discussed AI in mobile development, you know what I'm talking about. If not, I recommend to watch. Probably you will find something interesting there. Yeah, that's it. This is my final slide. There again, link to my Twitter and link to repository when you can find everything that I demonstrate you today.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha, for the presentation. It was quite extensive and interesting, even for me as Flutter developer. Thank you. We have some questions in our chat, so I believe you can help with the answers. And first question is, how does accessibility work with the embedded app? Does it go to point to Flutter items or skip them?
It's really good questions. To be honest, I didn't check because it was not my purpose, not a goal. But I can just predict that it works like as a mix, because Flutter supports accessibility, and they're just Flutter piece, and accessibility focus just go to Flutter piece, then go inside as a focus scope, and then work inside. But it will be nice to check. I expect such behavior, but nice. I will check it. And yeah, thank you for the question.
All right, thank you. And the next question, does the solution work on TV platforms?
I think it should be, because it should work, because Android TV is just Android. But there is almost no difference on native side and on work with Flutter. Our solution with Apple TV works almost as a iOS. To be honest, I never tried to use Swift UI for Apple TV. I have no idea, but I think it's the same approach. If it's the same approach, because it's just a platform and just Flutter UI on native on top of native component. There should be no difference. There is a difference with web. That's why it wasn't possible before implementing element embedding functionality. That's why, to be honest, I'm not sure now that it's possible to put two pieces of Flutter. I need to research it more carefully, because there are different approach to work. There is just JavaScript. Who knows? But we'll see in future. On TV, I have no problems.
All right, cool. And we have one more question from their community. Have you heard about using Rust to access native functionality of iOS, Android, or desktop platforms?
I would say I'm not an expert in Rust, but I heard, and even I know one Rust expert who tried to do it. I'm afraid not to tell something wrong, but as I remember, Rust will work also through can work with C interop with FFI. Means you can just work with it on NDA level on any platform and call from Dart using Dart FFI as well. And for example, for web, in new version of Flutter, there are experimental support of compilation to WebAssembly, and you can use Rust to create WebAssembly and also can work together with Flutter implementation. Yeah, it's possible. But yeah, it's also a nice question, and I will discuss it with my friend. Probably he will prepare something to share with community in future.
All right, that's great. And some guys also asking if they can reach you on Twitter for your help as Flutter expert.
Sorry, didn't catch.
Some guys are asking if they can reach you on Twitter for help.
Yeah, of course. For Twitter, LinkedIn, I prefer Twitter, but that's why I shared Twitter only. But it's not too heavy. Find me LinkedIn as well. If you, for example, don't have Twitter, or if you work for EPAM in Teams.
All right, that's cool. Thank you again for your presentation, for being here. And as for the others, stay tuned. We're going to be back just in a few minutes with another great talk, great speaker as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for attending. I hope it will be helpful in future.